Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. Take 3. Is this actually getting out there? I been trying to do this for the last 15 minutes and make this happen. So if we're actually getting something, then yay, great. If not, then I don't know what we're actually gonna do. Welcome to
Kicking off the
Nerdarchy for
gods of tech.
nerds by nerds. And with us we have Harry from
Hello.
from Orcs of New York. So, you wanna take it away, sir?
Yeah, I will. It's a pleasure to be here again. This is technically my third time here on Nerdarchy today. I'm Harry Aspinwall, the creator of Orcs of New York, which was started in 2015 as an image series showcasing the lives of regular, everyday Orcish New Yorkers, just giving us a little insight into their lives as they go about their business of earning money and shopping and marauding and pillaging and raising families and going to college. So right now we are running a Kickstarter campaign because last year we made a few live action videos following a young Orcish New Yorker as he tried to navigate the dating scene in New York, which, um, uh, as I said before, is not easy for any of us. I have so many friends who suffer through awful Tinder dates, and it's especially not easy for orcs. And those were great. Those got almost 500,000 views, and so now we're raising money with this Kickstarter to create a full series of these mini episodes, ideally 16 or more episodes is what we're aiming for, following a whole bunch of different orcs and elves and tree folk and I don't know wargs and whoever else we can get. If there are any celebrity wolf actors, we'll cast them as wargs. And we were chatting a little bit, Ted, earlier about having Nerdarchy come along as some barbarian slash Dvergar representation, because you guys, at least you, Ted, I don't know about Brian, everyone else, but you definitely have your own armor
I
and
do.
weaponry and things, so that would be great. Just sort of throw them on your back and stride through the wild lands of New Jersey into New York. Don't make eye contact with the police, and they'll just let you on your way. Try not to look too suspicious. But we'll be shooting that in kind of sometime in early-ish August. The dates aren't fully set yet. But yeah, please go to orcsofnewyork.com. And Ted, I think you have the links down below.
Yes, indeed. The links are down in the description if you want to go check out the Kickstarter and be able to see uh, the project that they've got working on, which is really cool. You can check that out. You can really see what these great guys are up to. Um, so you can where would they find more information besides the Kickstarter about some of the shorts that you've already managed to get out there?
Well, everything we have made so far is on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Orcs of New York. And I think if you go to, there's a tab on the left for videos as well. So that'll take you right there and show you everything. All of the Kickstarter updates are on there. And then there's a playlist for all of the ones following Teddy, who was our Orcish protagonist, Teddy Rashmore, last year. He dated a lot of humans. I guess he's kind of got a type.
All right, so I apologize everybody out there for the poor video quality. I'll have to try and figure out what is going on with this. Why today all of a sudden the machine is just not working the way it's supposed to. I've not had this much problem before, so I greatly apologize. If you want to continue listening to us, you can just kind of minimize or open the chat and just kind of frequent there. But I'm trying to figure out do I focus more on the tech issues or should I just focus more on the guest? So I'm gonna give up on the technological end. Hopefully I can chat with some of our more techie fans out there and they can
Yeah,
help me figure this stuff out between now and the next one because
definitely.
I don't want to have to go through this, but we got an awesome guest on, so we're gonna just chat this away and have fun.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Ted.
So, we've got this great Kickstarter. How did this truly come about? I mean, obviously, you said you had the shorts, but let's give the full story. How did we get to deciding to make those shorts, and then from there make the decide you want to do more?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this kind of recently. It was back in 2015. I just moved to New York and I was playing a lot of the video game Shadow of Mordor, if you know it, which was great fun. You just get to play kind of a human protagonist roaming around Mordor, just killing orcs. And I played this game for hours and hours and hours. And I suddenly had this moment of self reflection where I think I figuratively or literally looked at myself in the mirror and realized that I just spent days massacring whole clans and cultures of orcs. Suddenly felt like quite guilty about that. What am I doing? Just unquestioningly killing all these orcs. And I felt like I had to give something back to the orcish community. And so we know like Humans of New York, Brandon Stanton's awesome project that goes around like giving a lot of these really kind of profound glimpses into the lives of people first in New York and then he's gone all over the world. But I thought about that and I was like, why just humans? It's time to show some other hominin species as well. Orcs often get a very bad rap. Throughout kind of the Lord of the Rings series, mostly what we see of orcs is sort of slavering barbarians intent on devouring something that walks around on two legs. I thought it was time to show not exactly a more human side of them, because we don't use that kind of discriminatory language anymore, but a more personable side of them. And so from there, I had just started taking these pictures and putting them up on my own Facebook page. And some of my friends were like, these are great. You've got to make it its own page. So I was like, okay, I'll make it its own page. And all of a sudden, it had tens of thousands of followers. And Huffington Post wanted to call me up and do an interview. The Nerdist was writing about it. Some big newspaper in Brazil, which I hadn't heard of before, but that was kind of cool. They published the whole thing in Portuguese. And even R.L. Stine, the Goosebumps author, whose books Choose Your Own Adventure books I'd kind of grown up in Scotland reading and enjoying. He tweeted about it too, and I got to meet him a little while later. So it was kind of amazing that it resonated with so many different people. I guess people are just very hungry for orcish representation, which is cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then, you made the handful of videos and decided that you really liked the character and you wanted to be able to do more with it. So we've got this this Kickstarter that's now out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we want to bring back that character, Teddy, and his father, and show a little bit of their dynamic, which I think is going to be really fun because Teddy is like sort of a millennial orc. He kind of just lives his life and has to put up with the occasional like orcish stereotype, and his father is a lot more old school orc, kind of like first generation orcish American. Is very good natured, but still, has his house is decorated with very sort of traditional orcish artifacts like swords and miscellaneous body parts. So when Teddy brings home like a human date, which he's already not sure about how his father is going to take that, and his father's like, no, totally fine. I love man swine. And just, I'm like, God, Dad, you can't use that word around them. 2018. He's got to go around and hide all of his dad's kind of more provocative orcish paraphernalia, which his dad just takes totally in stride. So we're looking forward to kind of like showing a little bit more of his story. And then we got, I think we were chatting about a little bit before, we've got a few other storylines we want to show as well. There's an elfish politician who is like trying to become representative of one area of Brooklyn, which has got a lot of traditional elves in it who are very sort of set in their ways. And of course, elves, as everyone knows, when they're like kind of traditional, they're very traditional, because even the most progressive elves, their understanding of progressive politics is usually 80 to 90 years behind the times anyway. We can figure out how to kind of get the support of his base. I'm really looking forward to making the one about an orc who runs a fitness center. who kind of whose idea of torture extends beyond, spin class and hot yoga, the hottest yoga you can imagine, to kind of losing weight by actually bleeding out, the fastest way to lose weight. We've got a couple of sort of an elf and an orc, odd couple, bike cops. That's going to be a really fun one to make. And we're hoping to show even uh, a tree person in there as well. The Central Park, tourists come all the time and they take pictures of the pigeons and the squirrels. Every once in a while, they'll glimpse a huge walking tree as well. And tourists, they love that.
So we have our first question in the chat. DM Don says just watch the video on the live on the Kickstarter. It looks really awesome. Well, it's an odd question, but he wants to know what kind of insurance company did you get to be able to back something like this?
Well, we were very lucky to get a great deal with Black Fortress Insurance, who specialize in productions that incorporate a lot of magic and species that are traditionally regarded as quite bloodthirsty. Because it's true, a lot of insurance companies don't want to go in on something that could result in just absolutely catastrophic loss of life. I mean, we discussed this a lot for the Kickstarter too, that it's not easy shooting in New York. You've got dragons, active volcanoes, malevolent magic users, the subway, all kinds of things can go wrong shooting in New York. So we've taken out a fairly hefty magical insurance deal with Blackboard.
Very cool. I'm going to take some advice from the chat, and I'm going to kind of close off my camera and see if maybe that increases a bit of the issue. So I hope I'm not screwing things up here. So let's see. Let's hope this makes a difference. So looks like you guys can still still hear me and still see me, and we'll give it a few minutes and see whether that makes any difference whatsoever on our stream quality and stream health. But in the meantime, we can just keep this going.
This is definitely just so that Ted can take his shirt off during this conversation.
No, I'm quite certain that I could come up with more reasons if I felt the need to do that, but I don't think there's anything down that
People
road.
what they want.
Well, funny you should mention that. We've gotten some some weird fan art over the years.
Oh,
There was somebody who decided to draw one of I'm not going to mention who did it or which one of us it was, but they drew one of the Nerdarchy crew getting out of the shower in just a towel.
wow.
It was kind of weird.
Those are fans. Yeah.
You have fans out there, then they want to get into something. Hey, by all means, have at thee.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there for orcs too, definitely. What is that? What do they call it? Like Rule 54 or something?
Something along. I think it's Rule 34.
Rule 34. Yeah. Humans have some interesting ideas about orcs, I'll tell you.
They do. So, we mentioned before that you were a gamer besides. So you stumbled upon Nerdarchy because you just kind of did a search for anything related to nerds, and well,
Yeah,
Nerdarchy
kind of.
certainly does that.
Yeah, yeah. It was either that or someone had posted a link to it. I can't remember. I think it was back in 2015, right after Orcs of New York was coming out. I think it was either that year or it was 2016 when a few of us went to Gen Con as well. So we were seeing some of your updates.
Very cool.
Gen Con, which was pretty fun.
So what is your gaming history, gaming background? Normally, if somebody is like, "Oh, I want to do a video about orcs,"
yeah,
and clearly there's a big love of fantasy there, and
yeah,
most people who get into Tolkien and fantasy and that kind of stuff have grabbed these funny shaped dice and played D&D at some point.
yeah. Well, I think that growing up kind of in the age of the internet and computers, I might have come at it slightly backwards. I played some really fun role playing computer games back in the day, like Baldur's Gate, which I was obsessed with. And
I understand that one.
yeah, that got me into the mechanics of D&D because I was like, oh, that's interesting. There's a whole system already here, which I didn't really know about. Pretty young at the time. And then when I moved over to the US and I went to college over here and everything, a bunch of my friends were really into it. So we were chatting a little bit before. I haven't been a part of any successful long running campaigns, but I've done a bunch of one offs with some of my more dedicated friends, including my good friend Daniel Byers, who's the other creative in our production company, Dark Tower Films. We make all kinds of nerdy and bizarre fantasy and history type stuff. So we're very into that. And he actually runs a whole bunch of different games and one-offs as a DM. And he, from what he's told me, often gets inspiration for new film projects out of the games that he's run. Which makes a ton of sense to me. He like recorded the last game that we did a couple months ago, just to kind of test it out because there's all those like wonderful podcasts and video casts of people playing out there, and it turned out really fun. And we were just talking about it for so long afterwards. This world that he'd created, all the different like kind of stories we could take out of it. So I mean, it is like kind of as like a creative nerd, it is a really amazing way to kind of start building these very organic and very compelling, bizarre and fantastical stories with a group.
Well, the great part about doing things as a group, I mean, you have one person whose job is typically to lead the action, to control its flow to whatever degree, um, But like for me as a GM, okay, I get inspired by whatever's going on in my real life, books, movies, TV shows. Literally, I could be just, out walking in the neighborhood and something happens, someone says something, a bird call, whatever. Like,
Yeah,
these things bend and twist in weird and twisted ways. A lot of our awesome fans out there are familiar with the one day it's a Saturday morning and my kids are watching a cartoon show. And this is one of these like preschool age shows about an ogre trying to teach kids the way words work.
nice.
The show I think is called Wally Kazan,
Okay,
but
cool.
his friend is a witch, and it's her birthday, and he wants to get her a gift, and he's going around trying to find different things that she's into to be able to pick the proper gift. And he finds out that she likes bats, she likes spiders, she likes lizards, and my brain went, oh, let's combine all those things together. And I made a creature that is now a staple in our Underdark called an Abysder.
A
It's
spider bat lizard.
a spider bat lizard, totally a thing now.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's all came about by being inspired by a stupid little kids TV show, and I say stupid not as
Sounds
a
like a great show.
insult to the show itself, but just the concept of a 30-plus-year-old man being inspired for D&D by this kind of a show.
Yeah. It's true.
Weird and crazy things happen.
I know what you mean, though. Even as like kind of like a filmmaker and a writer, when my mind is kind of in the zone for a certain project, anything I'm doing, it'll like inspire some little bit of plot or something, and I got to run over somewhere and write it down. I end up compiling these huge long lists of ideas just from random occurrences in day to day life. And Orcs of New York, of course, is full of that as well. When we show these stories, a lot of them are inspired by our day to day lives, and I could definitely see parts of D&D campaigns being inspired by that too. It'd be really fun to have one that was set amongst the challenges of New York. I feel like every time I get on the Q train here, I have to roll the dice, and I almost always crit fail and show up like an hour and a half late.
I mean,
They're real challenges.
that is one of those things that again, you take that inspiration and be like, okay, well, you could play
My
a
suffering.
you could play a modern game where the orcs are in New York City, and yet you still have all these fantasy critters, and you have to
Yeah,
figure out all of this stuff, and you could totally play that style of game. And then
yeah,
there'll be even more inspiration on it of like, okay, well, we've got to go fight this dragon, but the L train is late today.
yeah.
What do I do? Like, I can't just my wizard can't teleport us that far. What do I do? Like,
We got to go to IKEA to pick up new fortifications for the castle. We got to figure out how to assemble it.
uh, IKEA fortifications. That's not something I thought I was going to hear ever.
Copyright.
So you now have to try and get that into a. I'm offering that as a challenge. Get that into one of the episodes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. It's so fun just sort of chatting about these with people, like chatting about it right now. We chat a lot in the studio with the other creative folks behind the project, and we're just constantly coming up with new ideas. I was worried, honestly. It's been 3 years that I've been running Orcs of New York that eventually inspiration was going to dry up, but it seems like maybe, maybe me and my collaborators were just nerdy enough to keep pulling out new ideas, but it hasn't
Well,
run out yet.
that is one of those things that it's a passionate project.
Yeah,
It's very hard to completely run dry. Like
yeah,
some things are. This is a course. Like there is a start, there is an end. No, and if you look at movies and many different TV series, there is a story arc that is there and is followed. Sometimes stories are created where there is no set end in mind, and they just kind of go through this sine curve of, well, this is a good episode, that's not a good episode.
yeah,
But typically a lot of gamers, a lot of nerds, they have more passion than the average person, and i'm
yeah,
certain i'm certain there's people out there who want to disagree with me, and everybody's welcome to their opinion, but I just think that the people I've met that get into gaming, they have more passion and more oomph to do the kind of stuff that we do. Like, we don't just love fantasy and gaming and rolling funny shaped dice. Like, there's people out there who they live it. They dress in the role. They dress in their characters when they show up to game. You have
yeah,
loads of LARPers out there who, like, okay, for an entire weekend or for a week, depending upon what the course of the event is, I'm
yeah,
gonna go become that drow or that
yeah.
tiefling, or you
Sweat
know
heavily. Have to pick ticks off myself. Yeah, dedication.
so that takes a lot more. Like, okay, yeah, you have your sports fans out there who are like, I'm gonna wear the T-shirt and I'm gonna paint my face, and it's like, all
Yeah,
right, that's for a game for part of the year.
yeah,
But let's face it, gamers are gamers year round. LARPers are LARPers nonstop. Like, they do this stuff, and there is no off season. Like,
yeah,
there's not. Oh, we only can game September through December.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. I think as well, it's become a lot more mainstream in the past few years too. Talking about things like Dungeons and Dragons, they were playing D&D and Stranger Things. My little cousins have been. I just learned recently they know what D&D is. My little cousin has already run his own campaigns. I feel like it is kind of a lot more accepted. I mean, you always see those memes going around, right? That are kind of like, these are satanic things, feminism, Dungeons and Dragons.
well, I
I'm not
mean,
sure everybody's going to try and make that argument anymore.
Well, I mean, we're how many years beyond the Satanic Panic? Like,
Yeah.
and anyone that is
Back.
still
Okay.
that is still thinking about D&D is teaching children to light candles and summon demons and be evil.
Useful life skills.
Get with the times. Like D&D is playing make believe with rules.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I love this hobby, with all my heart. I've been playing it for, more than half of my life at this point in time.
Yeah.
I turned 40 in a couple months, and I've been
Oh,
doing this since I was 14.
I turned 30 in 2 days. So
Oh, well, happy birthday coming up.
early birthday to you.
But it's one of those things like, all right, we get to express our imagination. We get to develop teamwork. We get to develop planning. We get to get into empathy. We get to get into, um, you know, character progression. Like as we evolve, we
Mhm.
learn things from just the interaction of ourselves at the table.
Yeah.
We get to build friendships with the people that we game with. Like all of these things are really good building blocks.
Yeah.
Even if all you're doing is kicking in the door and slaying the monster, you're
Yeah.
still going to come up or come away with these type of takeaways.
Yeah, and I think it comes back as well to long-running stories that when people really care about something, and when there's a really interesting world that's been built, a lot of people start really caring about it, and it can last a really long time. I mean, all of, for example, the Star Trek series, they've had like a long run and then they finished off, but like kind of as a universe or as a franchise, essentially, it was able to keep kind of making more. And the same, obviously, true of Star Wars. This
Absolutely.
huge, massive empire, and I mean, I've been reading a bunch lately about Amazon's $1 billion Lord of the Rings deal, which is kind of amazing. That's a huge gamble for them, I feel like. But I
Mm-hmm.
know more about it because, like, as an actor, I want to know who's casting that so that I can send them a tearful, passionate letter to like just put me in one scene, please, $1 billion.
So that kind of springs to one of the comments in the chat. Zareth Gaming says life is nothing without passion, and
Yeah.
it's so true. DM Don has a second question for you. Says, where would you like to see this whole project go? Would you like to see a future with either D&D, Wizards of the Coast? Would you want to get this as a new series on Netflix?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting, right? I would love to for this to be successful enough that it was like that one of these on-demand uh, companies wanted to pick it up. That would definitely be my dream. It's really interesting seeing, like, since Orcs of New York started, orcs have kind of become more popular. And I don't want to say we're 100% responsible for Renaissance, but things like Bright have come out on Netflix.
I was actually going to bring that part up, but go ahead.
I want to like look Hulu right in the eye and say, "You're the only one now that doesn't have orcs. Pick us up." I love Hulu, honestly. That would be the dream. So right now, I mean, we're hoping to raise this money to make some really high quality episodes of Orcs of New York, and from there, we're going to make all of those episodes just totally free for everybody on Facebook. And we want to get just as many people watching them as possible. I mentioned already that our last episodes that we all filmed in basically a day got almost 500,000 views just right off the bat. So we're hoping that we can like kind of put enough effort into these and raise enough money, honestly, to make them happen, that we can make something that's just going to like make a lot of people passionate, and with enough kind of like obvious passion and enough fans behind them. I hope that Orcs of New York would become very attractive to like a studio or an on-demand company who would then want to give us even more money to make even more spectacular shows. So that's my hope of where Orcs of New York could end up. Yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean that definitely I think gets down the covers that. But you brought up Bright, and that was something that I was going to bring up. Bright is very much a more Shadowrun esque kind of take, whereas I think you've taken your Orcs of New York and just kind of like, well, orcs have been around, here they are. It wasn't this whole major fantasy uh, crossover like Bright is, where the world is kind of on that verge of destruction, where magic is super bad. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I honestly have not seen Bright because I do want to maintain a slight professional distance from it, if that
Okay.
makes sense. I saw a lot of it, and people were kind of tagging me a lot as it was coming out. And I was like, "This is just a little too close."
Okay.
It's like kind of the West Coast version, but I definitely see like kind of certain similarities.
Well, I mean, if you
Like
have
something that I like about like kind of with Orcs of New York, just showing some of the mundane aspect of like everybody's in New York, everybody just lives like cheek and jowl, and you all have to find ways to get along with each other. There are like crises at times, when like they're like Hurricane Sandy, or when the transit system is in a state of national emergency right now, or there could be like wyvern attacks at any second. One of the cursed tombs beneath Fifth Avenue could be opened up, and there could be ghosts just everywhere. But ultimately, all of those like spectacular high stakes scenarios, they impact people's day to day lives. And as New Yorkers, the craziest stuff happens all the time, and everyone's like, "Oh, New York, I'm gonna be late for work." That's a little bit of maybe that is, like you say, kind of one of the key differences is like people just doing their day to day lives and having to put up with the crazy stuff that New York throws at them.
I mean, fantasy is something that is very much rich in our culture. The major success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, followed by the slight success of the Hobbit trilogy. We now have like people who weren't into fantasy in any way, shape, or form, chomping at the bit to get to things like Game of Thrones
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
and that kind of stuff. The chat is bringing up that Amazon right now is considering a Wheel of Time show, which that's a major saga as well that could.
Yeah.
I don't know if it could stand up to what HBO has done with Game of Thrones,
Right.
but if it's done well, it could
Wow.
try.
Yeah.
Um, so like with all of that push, like I definitely see that there is room for growth and movement with this kind of project.
Yeah,
Would it?
it's very people are very kind of passionate about it, and I've seen that. I wasn't really expecting anything out of Awesome New York when I started it, and now it's got 80,000 followers. Anytime I post anything, these amazing fans are commenting on it, bringing their own insights and getting into flame wars about goblin pop music and like kind of celebrity orcish actors. Um, so the I think, like, yeah, like you say, the time is right. Our community on Orcs of New York is just like constantly blows me away. So yeah, it does seem like kind of a popular time for this kind of thing.
All right, so we got a question. It wants to know, what kind of beer are you drinking?
Oh, well, I'm very glad you asked. If you saw today's video, you'll know that Orcs of New York has very fortunately, we're lucky to now be sponsored by Bargoose Ale, an orcish beverage from Desolate Plains. Desolate Plains' cheapest and most popular alcoholic beverage, brewed under a volcano in a land with no labor laws or health codes. Bargoose Ale is perfect for any barbecue. 4th of July is coming up. Nothing says America like a bottle of faintly humming liquid covered in runes. Drink Bargoose today.
That is hysterical,
Oh
sir.
my god.
So as we're talking about all of this, there's a couple comments. James Leslie says the show sounds interesting, but all I can picture is the show Dinosaurs, but with orcs. And Flower of the Life Collective is saying, can we have Sex in the City with an orc cast?
Yes, we can. We
So
can and we will. In fact, Grund, who is one of the actors, if you saw the Kickstarter video, you'll know that we've shot behind the scenes on the set of Blades of Love, the long-running Orcish telenovela series. Well, Grund, one of the main actors in that, who's actually a friend of mine, and I'm hoping to do some live videos with him too, he had a very minor role on Sex and the City back in the day. If you watch Sex and the City, I honestly did watch all of Sex and the City. I was a fan. But they almost exclusively date white human men. Grunt was one of the few orcish romantic interests. So yeah, we're hoping to bring that kind of thing back. But go and watch the videos that we shot last year for a little glimpse into orcish dating life in New York. In the city. That's what we'll call it. We'll probably get sued.
So Zareth Gaming says, I think there was a 1950s PSA on Weavern attacks, and it says to go under your desk.
True. Yeah. Because that way, at least you won't see your imminent death zooming down upon you.
Or the tail that's full of deadly, deadly poison,
Yeah.
shooting out at you.
Yeah, yeah. Just at least live your last few moments in blissful ignorance. That's all anyone can ask.
All right, so where else do you want to have this conversation go? We got 10 more minutes. I said we'll reserve the last few to really drive it home what Orcs of New York City is, and to
Yeah.
give the imploring. But what else do we want to talk about before we get
I'll
to that?
summon some tears for those last few minutes. I don't know. What would be a good double conversation? Anybody feel free to chime in with questions as well. We're actually hoping to do, I'm going to make a post on this after we wrap up here, but Grund, the Orcish actor that you can see in the Kickstarter video, he is wanting to do a live Q&A tomorrow. So go onto our Facebook page, facebook.com/Orcs of New York, and post your questions for Grund, and he'll be answering them live on the page.
What time is that planning to be?
Oh, I should know that. Let me check right now.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
The marvels of technology. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, Wednesday, but I'll post a whole bunch of reminders about it too. So we're looking forward to having him in. We have a few different events coming up with Orcs in New York as well, because this is, of course, Orcish History Month, in addition to being Pride Month, which is a good overlap. We're going to have Coney Island's Mermaid Parade is coming up this Saturday. So we're hoping to get a few different orcs together to go and march around in the Mermaid Parade. Orcs of the Ocean. So if anybody's in Brooklyn, come to the Mermaid Parade and find us there. We'll live stream that too. And hopefully have some orcs at Pride. I know that like in the past, I've showcased a few different orcish takes on gender and sexuality, which is mainly that orcs don't really care and are open to everything. I often get asked on the Facebook page, actually, where are all the orcish women? Which is a tricky conversation to have as humans, because certainly, I mean, when I interview these orcs, I don't really like to ask. I think it is actually difficult for a lot of humans to tell orc men and orc women apart, and I'm probably going to get some flack for saying that. Some orcish women on the page are more obviously women than others, but I think as humans, we've just got to, and I'm sure that like kind of Nerdarchy knows this too, that like dwarven women also don't get a lot of visibility just because humans are very bad at telling them apart. So I think like it's 2018, it's time for us humans to educate ourselves on other species. I forget how I got into that whole ramble. Oh yeah, Orcs at Pride. So watch out for us there too. Yeah, anybody who's in New York, follow the Facebook page. We'll be posting where we're going to be around the city this whole month. Yeah.
So, were there any interesting moments filming, on the New York City streets.
Yes, there was. One leaps immediately to mind. We were shooting with our wonderful orcish actress Hammersack for the teaser video, where she comes up and says, "Monsters, hey asshole, I'm a New Yorker," and the sound just was not working for that. That was our last shot of the day. We had to do that over and over and over again. We were on the sidewalk and she kept yelling, "Hey asshole!" And eventually, this very nice, mild-mannered human woman came out from the store and was like, "Hey guys, we're doing yoga meditation inside. Would you guys mind keeping it down just ever so slightly?" And we were like, "I'm so sorry. We just had an orc bellowing for the past 15 minutes, interrupting your yoga."
Now I know, New Yorkers have their own reputation, and that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna go one way or the other. Um, was there any kind of dirty or weird looks with anyone, in makeup or costume or however you want to phrase that? Anything that you had to deal with there?
Oh no, no. New Yorkers are just used to seeing everything. They don't bat an eye. Orcs stroll through, wyverns plaster a storefront with poison. It's all another day in New York City. No, everybody just kind of just rolls with it. You see everything here.
So Zareth Gaming wants to know, could you pitch an action buddy cop drama? But I think that kind of hits pretty close to Bright, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think it would need to be done a different way. We're hoping to. We had all these ideas before, right? I just want to say, but like one of the things we do want to have in the series is uh, these bike cops going around the park, like kind of looking out for any signs of adventure and crime. And it's like a park beat, so it's probably not that interesting. But there'll be the odd couple, an orc cop and an elf cop. Um, so I think it'll be like, you know, what I like about this, like we were talking about before, is very kind of low stakes side of things. So having bike cops, I think, would be quite nice.
Like you're not talking about motorcycle, you're talking about bicycle.
Yeah, bicycles, bicycles, solving crimes.
Now that would be hysterical. I mean, I've done, some of our fans out there know, but I'm heavily involved in scouting, Boy Scouts of America,
Yeah,
and one of the things that our pack does is a bike rodeo. Well, I've been for the number of years now. I'm the point person for our township's bicycle cops, and they come
yeah,
over and they do a whole thing on bike safety. So like it's definitely a thing whether people acknowledge it or not.
yeah.
But it's kind of amusing that, yeah, that's really a thing in
My, yeah,
2018.
my cousin once removed is in the NYPD and he works at Central Park Beat, which I think he loves honestly because it's like very reasonable hours and he gets to spend time amongst the trees. I could see it working for elves too.
I think they would be a little bit more natural with it.
Yeah, I'd also love to see, more cops going the old-fashioned route of carrying a bow and arrow uh, rather than the standard issue pistol.
That'd be pretty amusing.
Yeah,
All right, so we're down to our last couple minutes. Orcs of New York is on Kickstarter. You've done a handful of preliminary videos, but you want to make this be a full season.
yeah.
So for our people that are watching now, or the people who wind up watching this later, let's give the pitch and convince people why they should come and support your Kickstarter.
Okay. Well, Orcs of New York is going to show a whole bunch of different lives of everyday orcish, elvish, maybe some trolls, some tree folk New Yorkers living their regular lives. We want to get a glimpse into the incredible fantasy world that is New York City. So with your money, we can make it happen. We have some incredible perks. So go to our Kickstarter page, orcsofnewyork.com. We'll be posting updates too. We have a whole bunch more videos to post. We want to do it with a really high production value and get some cool people involved as well. So we're working with an amazing casting agency here in New York, Wojcik C. to get some recognizable actors on board as well. We're going to be posting updates as they come in, and as we can reveal what actors that you might recognize are going to be involved in Orcs of New York. But we're very excited, and we want you on board. Orcs of New York already has this amazing community for the past few years, which I'm eternally grateful for. All of their comments and their messages have been so inspiring. We want to grow that community too. So come support us.
And if that's not enough of an incentive, which I think it is, there has been some chatter, whether you've heard it or not. Harry has talked about potentially, since it's only a handful of hours driving distance away, of possibly having some
Yeah,
slightly little known Nerdarchy community heading up to New York and
yeah,
being as extras or whatnot. I've already got some armor and some props that I would be able to, bring up and share.
yeah.